Thanks everyone for being here, and sorry that it's English today, but I hope it's fine for everybody. And I'm also sorry for the people that are forced to be here, all our people from all over Europe from the Veertly company. So thanks very much for joining this Founders Talk. We will speak a little bit about our journey that we had in the past about 2 years, growing from 0 to 20 people, and some of you are here, and how we raise money, and what were the challenges that we faced, but also how we overcome them, and yeah, some really secret insights about how we did it. Good. Yeah. Yes, so we are from Veertly. Veertly is a platform for online and hybrid events. So I guess most of you have experienced it in the past 2 years. You join online events to connect with others and follow speeches like this one. Luckily, you can also do it now in person. At the same time, we have now realized that we want to focus a little bit more on a certain niche. And one niche that we have chosen now to focus on is team building for remote and hybrid teams in order to better connect and collaborate. And as said before, some of these faces you might see here around. This is our team. We are about 20 people, and we just spent 5 days in the Black Forest together. We call it pop-up office, where everybody gets together for a certain time. And we spend today here in the Steyg as well as tomorrow, and then everybody is off again to their places, to Croatia, to Portugal, to Netherlands, to Germany, Switzerland, like all over Europe so far. So maybe a question for you. What is the most important reason for you guys to stay at the company that you're at the moment? Some ideas like how do you feel about why are you still working for this company that you're at the moment?
I can relate to it.
You can relate to it?
Yeah.
Team.
I have a purpose.
Purpose?
Loyalty.
Interesting topics.
Yeah.
Money.
Money? Yeah. Indeed. I think there are multiple topics, and we can move on to the next slide. There are multiple reasons for that. We heard it like money for some personal development, culture, team. But a Harvard study in 2017 found that close relationships, more than money or fame, are really what people keeps happy or makes happy throughout their lives. So I want to share a bit about my personal story. So my personal story, I started in 2008 with my first entrepreneurial experience, where I founded a company where we hosted also events, but in real time. At the same time, it's not about the company that I worked for, but really the person I met. And actually, this is Stefan, and Stefan was introduced to me by Joshka back then. I know Joshka for all my life, but he introduced me to Stefan, with whom I built the company. And yes, I had met really cool experiences during my first entrepreneurial journey, but what really stuck is the experience I made with him and the person and the relationship with the person. And we are still friends till today. Same, I studied at the DHBW here in Stuttgart. Of course, I learned a little bit of it, but at the same time, what stuck is actually my partner. She's also here today, Karina. So we are now a couple, and yeah, so that's again a relationship that just stuck much longer than just a position, and you can see a couple of times. Yeah, I did internships. Like in the US, at Informat, but also in the end, it's stations where I learned something, was interesting. But what is really stuck until today is really the people I met, the connections, people that helped me sometimes to get in there, but also people with whom I'm still really engaged until today. Another big question today. We founded Veertly together with Joao. We met at a hackathon in 2020 in Switzerland, and the two of us, we continued to build Veertly. And at some point, basically the story, I hope it's not ending here, but Joshka joined us basically back together where it's all started. He introduced me to my first entrepreneur journey, and now we are on this ride together. And the big question is, can you make a good remote culture that you can have really deep connections? So you said yourself, right, what makes it? And basically, can you have in a remote or hybrid work setup that strong connections that they will last for maybe like a lifetime? And there are some things that we often hear when we speak currently to people, like people feel isolated. They have fewer connections with their colleagues. You don't have the feedback culture that you get like about your work. You don't learn and improve that much. Also, it's really hard in a virtual environment to really understand the feelings of the others. Like you talk very effectively about the topics, but very barely ask the colleagues how do you feel and really understand how it is. If you come to an office and you see those faces like hanging down, and you realize okay something is wrong, but virtually it's harder to feel it. At the same time, often people say, okay, remotely we're not innovative enough, we can't feel it. So the big question is, we are a fully remote company. Nevertheless, I'm talking so much about connections. How is it possible actually to do the things at the same time? And I think yes. So yeah, the winning formula, how to scale from 0 to 20, well, bummer, there is no. At least we don't know it, so we can't tell you. But we have had some challenges over the past 3 years, and definitely we took some learnings. So we divided it into 3 steps. The first one is prototype phase, then our basically our second phase, bootstrapping phase, and then a scale phase. And the first prototype phase from 0 to 5. What are the problems, the challenges we have? Well, first big challenge, we did not have any money. Second challenge, still no money. And the third biggest challenge, we didn't have any money back then. So how do you start a company without any money, without any funding? And so the solutions and learnings that we took from the stage are first, well, we did a little hack. So we attended hackathons and started a Telegram. Why? We got at least for 3 days free resources that worked for us on the project. So we went there, we worked together with people that just supported us. At the same time, we were hoping that those people might really like what we are doing and might stay engaged for a longer time. And this worked well. So you can see also at the errors, if they're coming up, it was worked well. If it's going down, wouldn't recommend to do it. At the same time, we accepted everybody who basically wanted to engage with us on this project. We were like, oh, this is so exciting. They want to continue with us and working with us and help us to build something cool. So we accepted pretty much everybody who talked to us and applied to join us on this journey. But what we did wrong here, we really didn't check if there's a long-term fit in terms of culture. So this is really what we would recommend to do if you have people at the early stages. Make sure there's a fit and don't just accept them because they're excited about the story that you want to tell. At the same time, staying lean, focus on building a product, I think was really well. We didn't get distracted from anything. We're really a small team, focused, building a product. I think something I would do a bit differently here is focusing early on also building the sales and the demand on the sales and marketing side, instead of just focus too strong on the product and on the clients. But in the end, it really helped us to build a super nice product. And I mean, it comes down again to personal connections. So the first employees that we have, some of them are still here. I mean, especially on the more senior developer side, the development team are all kind of friends or friends of Joao. Also on other teams, we have like maybe first hire, but then many are coming really through personal connections. Second phase, bootstrap, 6 to 13 people. A little bit different. So the challenge here was, yes, we had a little bit of money, but it was still hard. I mean, you need to prioritize, you need to see how to deploy this money most effectively. The solutions and learnings that we took away. First, I highly can recommend all startups to use AngelList as a hiring platform. You get tons of applications, even though no one knows your startup at all. At the same time, the quality, well, let's put it varies. So you need to invest some time to really find the right people. And I can say, I think there's some people in our team still today that really came through AngelList.
What means bootstrap?
Bootstrap means basically without any funding, kind of growing the company. So what happened here, we had a little bit of money because we already made revenue quite early. So we were still financed by ourselves, by the revenues, by the money we put into the business, but we did not get any external finance. So yes, AngelList. At the same time, we learned from the first stage that the culture is super important. So we really want to engage with the people to make sure that there's a fit of what our beliefs, what our values are, that there's a fit to the people that we hire. At the same time, with just few money, you always have the trade-offs. Do I hire 2 junior resources or 1 senior person? Like, right, you need to make trade-offs. I think it really depends on the senior, or like on the development side, we hire really senior people and we really pay off. At the same time, on some other positions, we started with more intern positions. So there's always a trade-off. I think personally, what I would focus on is at the early stages, make sure whatever you can cover yourself, and you can also teach the people. You can hire junior people from the start, but on all other positions where you're not super experienced, I would highly recommend to invest more money and rather get like one very senior person than too many junior people. Also, what we learned from our people that were more junior, they said, we really want to learn. And if you're not the right leader for them, you can't teach them much, they won't be able to learn, they will leave at some point. So it's a trade-off. I think we did a decent job, but it's not like black or white, it's really, you need to find a good fit. And again, I said before, personal connections. I mean, it's not just that we hired our friends, but it started the culture that our employees started to refer us. And indeed, it was kind of it's called a snowball system, but I mean, if people like to work for you, they also like to recommend you to their friends. And that's how you really become relevant. And it's for us at least, it really worked well as a company. Growth phase. 14 to 20 people where we are today. So actually we got some investment last year, about 2 million from some VC and angel investors. And the challenge there, what happened is, yes, we had some money, but how, again, do we deploy those effectively? And actually, before or after raising a financing round, it's before the next financing round. So now you need to justify what are you doing with the money. You need to justify how do you deploy it most effectively, and can't just spend it on nice cars or like fun trips. No, actually do it. How did you overcome this challenge, and what are the learnings? What we realized at the stage where we are now, where you really then kind of grow and really need to get the next level also of like experienced talent and want also to have an outside appearance, find people that really have relevant experience and also positive impact for future hires. What I mean by that is people that have startup experience from cool companies or Google, Facebook, Amazon, I don't know. But this is showing and consulting, investment banking companies that people, where they know people learn a lot, they are usually quite qualified. That gives an outside perspective. Like if those cool and qualified people work for this company, it helps you to attract further talent. Also, from AngelList, we realized we found some really good people, but it also takes a lot of time to really segment them and to filter through them. In the meantime, we had quite some followers on LinkedIn, for example, and this presence on LinkedIn, and that we had clients, we were quite, at least in the industry, also known in the meantime. This helped us to use also LinkedIn as an effective hiring machine. So I think from an HR perspective, it's really useful for us to hire people there. At the same time, we tried a lot of different platforms to hire, like specialized platforms for developers, or I think we tried also something where we could get people from the Ukraine. And we tried a lot of different platforms. We put it like, not sure if it's really useful. Probably what we did wrong is we tried a lot of different platforms and didn't focus too much on just one platform. So it's hard to say if there's values. I think for some people it might work, for some companies, for us it wasn't the most successful one. And what is really important, if you want to grow, it's not just about new clients, about new employees. Most important is about the existing ones, like retaining your clients, retaining your employees. So make sure you don't just say, okay, I've hired them, they're happy because you're just cool. No, that's not how it works. So you need to invest actually in your team, that they're happy. Like again, what we did now, I think is a big lever for us, for our team. But it's not enough to say like, once a year a nice trip, bringing everybody together, having some fun, some drinks and party. That's not enough. So you need to think, how can you make the team stay engaged over the full year, making sure they're really happy, they connect with each other, build those relationships, what I was saying early on at the very beginning. Maybe not just relationships for the company, but really long-term, lifetime relationships. And we see this happening. For an example, I think Elena was now visiting also Larissa in Aachen. People visit, they travel to each other. Also, we are traveled now to Berlin to visit Elena. So I think we see people traveling, meeting each other, building these relationships that are much stronger, much more than just what we do at work at the moment. Joshka will share you a bit more about how the culture is that you built.
Yeah, exactly. Since you said that retention is one of the key levers. We also thought about, so how do we actually look at retaining and building a strong culture? We definitely believe we have built a strong remote culture. Yes, there's a few people that live around Stuttgart, so we call it remote/hybrid. Every once in a while people meet. But definitely it drills down to 6 pillars. First, trust. I think this is the foremost priority we have. We trust, first of all, the people, because we don't watch them, so we trust them. And trust is probably the biggest enabler that people take risks. Because if they don't feel trusted, if they don't feel any psychological safety, they don't take risks, and you would like to take the risk because you can't monitor everything, and this is the thing being a startup and not in a big corporate. Second, care. Alex mentioned it earlier, care is much more important in a remote company, what we realized in a physical company. In a physical company, you see how people are, you maybe get a sense when you walk in the room, is it kind of like, what is the team sentiment? Remote, you don't. If you don't talk to any person during the day, you don't know what's going on. So it's very important early on, teach each leader, teach each employee to watch out for each other, right? Like maybe this person won't talk to me and say, well, Alex is not doing good, but then maybe Joe tells me, hey, I don't think Alex is doing good, let's watch out. So it's very important. Third pillar, flexibility. Probably one of the main reasons why people also join us is they have flexibility in time and space. Even though we have better experience with working in a similar time zone than being in the very beginning very asynchronous. Our team, our current hiring rule is CET plus minus 2 hours. So in order to have also shared moments that are synchronously rather than running everything asynchronously, and at the end bringing another complexity into the system. Fourth, communication. We'll come to this later, but for me, communication is probably key in terms of over-communicate. There's much less talk going on the coffee machine. There's no coffee machine, so it's very, very important that you focus much more on communicating and use different channels. That might be a Loom video, that might be a voice message, that might be a phone call, that might be a video call, that might be a written Slack message, and so on. So there's different ways, really focus on communicating, be transparent, etc. Fifth, values. Present your values, show what values you are. We have 4 values that we truly believe in. Share them with your team. Share them also in hiring. Alex mentioned this earlier. I think we lost most of the people where we had disbeliefs on what our values are, and especially how we work together. There's a specific way how we do what we believe our 6 pillars might not be the right one for others, but it's very, very important to make that very clear in the beginning. Everybody has a different view. What is remote work? The one thing is maybe I'm sitting in Bali and I turn on my laptop. The other things, I just want to be at home, just don't want to travel to the city. So very, very different aspects and very different beliefs on how remote work align on the values. Last pillar, pride. And I think you said purpose, pride. I think it's core. We said, what makes those companies? I mean, I think Bruno, you just passed by KPMG and said, like, what a nice office. Bruno worked for KPMG. We don't have that, right? You cannot say, well, Alex, you said like in the Paradeplatz, well, here, this is where I work and this is amazing. So you can't just show, hey, Veertly, here's the laptop, this is where I work. So it's very different. So, but try to bring this across. It's very important that people feel proud where they work and how they work. So before, just those pillars are very important for us, but we would like to give you some actions that we think are, it's just a selection, but we just want to run through quickly to share a bit what are actions that we think that work well for us. Maybe there's 1 or 2 that work well for you too, or could work. So take it as a kind of like a food for thought or ideas. We have regular team building activities. We actually have one scheduled every month. And now since we're building the platform, we're running much more in order to test also other platforms. But it's very crucial, and we have that very fixed in our calendar, and we try not to move it if not possible. It happens every once in a while, but normally we try really to stick to the time. Every first Monday in the month. Over communicate, I mentioned it before. Over communicate much more, be more transparent. Sometimes twice the communications. We have like we use Coda very, very transparently. So you can have it in Coda, but on the other side, you might need to communicate it in another meeting. Third, weekly employee pulse checks. We use a tool for that. It's called Office Vibe, just to check a bit the sentiment. 5 to 10 questions, very short. How is the pulse of the company? It's anonymous, but it's based by kind of like function by team, so we understand where are different dynamics. We don't, I mean, like every week it's up or down. I think it's not as much as important, but we see when there's downward trends, when there's upward trends, when there's stable trends where we like to improve. And we can also use that at asking simple questions. We actually not just use as pulse checks, we like to send surveys. I think some people say I filled out before we met together, I think they filled out 20 surveys or so, but I think this is a mechanism to get feedback even though we don't use it. Fourth, motivate people to connect. I think we said in the beginning, if you're 5 people, we will connect occasionally, but really try to bring people new in. And we cannot always connect with everyone. Tell them to connect with each other, to have this exchange and make this a really an effort. We need to facilitate. It's not, please connect with each other, schedule one-on-one, nothing's going to happen. So really facilitate times, encourage people as leaders, encourage people to take one-on-ones, ask them with whom they did one-on-ones, etc. Fifth, virtual office. I think I'm going to show a picture. We have the advantage that Veertly is our virtual office, and we all say it's interestingly, even though it's just virtual, we see when people are around. So it kind of feels like, hey, there's something going on. And I also feel if there's nothing going on, then weirdly I say like, it's very calm today. Like, even though there's nothing, it's just like meetings happen. I see when others have meeting, even though I don't know what's happening there. But it gives this feeling of, hey, things are moving, even though I'm not part of it. Very interesting. 6, meet physically at suitable cadence. For us, it's at the moment twice a year, every 5 to 7 months. We kind of drag all the energy in 6 days, then everybody's tired for 2 months, and then everybody can be happy again about the next one. So I think this is kind of the cadence we try to. Might be a little tired faces, 2 more days to go, and then you can say, I'm so happy to be home, and that's what I And then last, I said, CET +-2 works for us because it's more synchronous, and we like to have, we felt that this makes it a stronger culture to have synchronous actions. Definitely, we would like to see where can we work more asynchronously, because if you want to offer very flexible work times, then you need to allow that people send messages at 4 a.m. Ciao, send messages, really wake up, and then there are more late people that send messages maybe late night. So you want to enable that, and even that there's no break in terms of like communication. And find a European employment solution. For us, at the moment, we work with different platforms, but we work with remote. Now we're trying WorkMotion, so there's no perfect solution out there, unfortunately. But figure it out soon. Outsource that is very, very complicated to get involved into labor laws in several countries. All right. So just jumping through, giving a few more flavors before we end this talk. This is our virtual office space, you see, and normally you can see the rooms, meeting rooms, team workspace, and we see now there's nobody because I took a screenshot earlier. But if I would see here avatars of people, and that makes this feeling of, hey, there's somebody around, things are moving, things are not so moving. Interestingly, also in the evening it goes down, so people tend to say, okay, now it's maybe the norm is to go home or turn off the laptop or leave the workspace in the personal rooms. Second, what I think, regular team meetings. So we really try to bring people together, and we know it's getting harder and harder, and we know that in the beginning you had daily stand-ups. I think when I joined like 6-7 people, then we moved into, okay, let's have twice a week only, and only about updates. So really finding a good cadence, but we use this very much as a communication channel and share things from us founders on strategic things, but also ask people in the company, do we have topics to share? Is there things we want to introduce next week? Is there something we can do before that? And then last, many fun moments. So this is a picture from I think an icebreaker from a hackathon we did virtually. So we also tried to bring some fun moments. Of course, we also noticed that physically the moments, the fun, they stay a bit better, but also those moments stay very much, and especially we can share those pictures every once in a while in the random channel. It pops up this memory of like, hey, this was a cool thing. And lastly, lasting moments when we try to meet. And yes, we work on some topics, but we really challenge ourselves. What is physically better to do than doing online? And then really spend also a lot of time on getting to know each other. Create those moments that you will kind of like eat from the next 6 months until you meet the next time. Yeah. So in a nutshell, I think 3 takeaways from us. It's at the end, it's build your own every day and continuously. First of all, relationships, and encourage relationships, not just between us and the team, but the team with the team, and
not everybody can be friends, but foster the relationships that there's no barrier in connecting with others just because you don't know and they're in a different department and they sit somewhere at a place where you have never seen them. Second, listen and invest. Listen to your employees, get feedback more often, understand what their sentiment is, what their feelings are, how they're feeling, etc. And invest more time than you actually think and listen to them. And lastly, build your own culture. Define what is important for you and also define what is not your culture, right? And if you know what is not your culture, you can communicate much better. And we can reflect this much better now. And in the recruit interviews, like when we ask for expectations from remote work, we immediately know, okay, this is bucket, it's not our culture. Or this is bucket, this is how we like to remote work. I think this is very important in order to calibrate, okay, we have the same understanding of working together in a remote setup. Even though it's remote, it can be very different from one company to the other. Yeah, then thank you. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. There's also John, if you have any product questions, then we bring them in. But other than that, I mean, like, check it out. Maybe at some point, if you're a complete growth speaker in remote or hybrid world, Gomada might be something for you. If you have an event that you want to run, feel free to reach out to us and then run it on Veertly. Thank you. Cool.
Are there any questions?
Yeah,
I have one.
Okay.
So why do you have so many international employees? Why you don't just focus on Germany, on Stuttgart? It would be so much easier to connect and to share your culture and all the benefits you were talking about.
And turn around the question. Have you ever tried to find a developer, a full stack developer in Stuttgart area?
I'm a freelancer.
So I think the biggest trade-off is at the end, remote world is for sure not perfect. And I would love if the entire team sits here and if we can have the best of both worlds, but sometimes we need to make trade-offs. The trade-off is what do our customers in that sense, what will our future recruits want, and what can we bring together? And we feel that we have much more advantage of being distributed, having access to more talent, and bringing also what I learned is not just access to talent, but bringing different views into a product is very, very interesting. And lastly is also, we also like the flexibility of not working. I think also Joe and Alex, when they met, I think it wouldn't be clear where to move to. Joe lives between Lausanne and Geneva, and Alex is in Zurich, and sometimes also in Germany. So we also like that. And bringing that together is for us, the question is like, the trade-off is there. Yes, we are remote. So how can we make this the best? Because we think it's the better way, it's the future way to attract better talent and attract a better team. And we're totally convinced that we can build a very strong culture, even though we're remote.
We've been to a recruitment fair at a university lately in Mannheim, and we talked to many companies there asking, do you have issues to hire people, even though you're kind of a hybrid setup with like 2 office days a week? And they said yes. Like the students that they really asked, like, I want the flexibility to go travel for like 3 months without having any restraints on where to go. So in the future, I think this will be becoming more important. COVID was surely a big boost, but now everybody's used to it, and I don't think there's a way back. So you need to find a good trade-off for yourself.
Makes sense. So first of all, thank you both for the really personal insights. Now you show your past steps. What about your future steps then?
It's good to see. Yeah, so I think shared. We're tapping currently into a niche area where we want to connect people, which is the team building. Also, a lot of learnings we have flow into the product, and the good thing is we can try it every day, and we know all the challenges around it. We currently launched our beta access on that, and we want to officially market this in Q3, Q4, and looking forward to grow Gomada and be the platform that connects hybrid and remote teams and remote setup, makes it a safe place to work, help that leaders know what to do. And the path forward is that we look forward in raising a Series A mid next year, and then take it from there. We're truly convinced that this will be, let's see what the crisis says to us, but we are truly convinced this will be very valuable and a trend that is Airbnb just announced moving all employees to remote, so there will be more and more companies that actually have this demand, and I think we're at the right spot on a growing market and really want to be, for a start in Europe, the key player where you go to when you are a hyper-remote team, that you use Gomada to help you to build you a stronger team.
What is the difference between Veertly and
Demo.
Demo? In the end, that's a good question. No, I think what we realized, and that's why we're also focusing more on Gomada at the moment, is there's a lot of players in this virtual events market. I think the clear difference between Remo is a very playful approach with the little desks where you can then see other people around our like virtual desk and sit there. And we took a more professional approach in the way we display our application, the way people can connect with each other. It's a little bit different, but in the end, I think we have a bit more flexibility. But in the end, they're all platforms. There are lots of platforms that really have the option to host digital and hybrid events. And we were actually, why we moved into Gomada is because we looked into a niche that we could focus, because all the players are very generic at the moment in this virtual event space.
You showed us the I think 3 or 4 phases of scaling. How was this connected with the revenue? So you wrote down the employee numbers, but was it like
you can basically look at the return in profit once we had funding. So basically, until we had like 13 employees, we funded ourselves and all employees from that. Yes, we knew 2 months ahead what's going to happen, so we could hire some people with the knowledge that we burn now the pile that we have grown up. And then basically we started only from the growth as hiring premature. Premature hiring means that we pay more money now to our employees that we actually get the revenue for per month. So bootstrapping lasted roughly 12 months. Basically, we started in 2020, July, August, September, getting the first revenues in, and in September the year after, we raised money with 13 people on board. So we actually there was quite some revenue traction, because otherwise we could never afford such a team already at that stage. Which was, in that sense, quite a late. So we also had, there's no pre-seed round, we had a seed round and took it from there. Does that answer your question, or did you want to have numbers?
no?
But you can do the math, right? You know what 13 people cost.
No, it's not. It's just like a philosophical question. Like, how do you choose who to which role to fill and which one you don't need yet? And I mean, you could start with 20 employees directly.
Yeah.
But I think it's more like a puzzle or something. You see a need in there and you hire for that.
I think also what is important, especially if you're a co-founding team, to really be aligned what you want to do. Do you want to build a family business that will grow over time, slowly but steadily over 20 years, and you will run it? Or do you decide we are on a path to be venture backed and maybe want to build a unicorn in 10 years or so? I think it's a really different story that you would build. When we wouldn't have fundraised, we could have remained. We might have been now 15 people instead of 20, still cash flow positive. But we on purpose really decided, hey, we want to build something much, much bigger than what we have today. And that's the path we've chosen. But it's important to be aligned here in that front.
The founding team and I would always look at the market, what market you're playing in. Is it a market that is fast growing? Then you might be late in 5 years. If it's a market that just is at the rise and where you still have a year or two, then I would really recommend bootstrap as far as you can. When there's a point you can't bootstrap anymore, okay. But until then, I would bootstrap. If the market is super fast growing and you feel that everybody's racing around you, then it's great time to go to fundraising.
You said at the beginning you started with bootstrapping. That means low salary. I think in general, did you implement something like an option program, share option program, VSOP or something like this?
Yeah, we have a virtual stock option plan.
Okay.
That all employees, team members are participating participating in. And yeah, it has been core from the very beginning, even though I must admit we didn't have it in place at the very first hires. I think if we see here, the very first ones actually did not join. I mean, I guess maybe with the view on a virtual stock option plan, but motivations were at the end different. People join because they like the product, they like the team, like the remote setup and so on. But at the end, yes, we use it as a lever to attract people. We also realized, honestly speaking, the percentage you give away in the VSOP does not automatically reflect in so much in the salary. There's certainly a base salary when people, especially senior people, want to come. They have an expectation, a base salary, and it's very hard to go lower the base salary, even you increase the stock option plan to a certain percent. At least my experience. Yeah.
How did you manage it? Maybe benefits increase your salaries, so really the
Savings. So I personally savings because I don't have a family. Sean actually did 3 jobs at once. He was a father. He was working at a full-time at another company, and then at night he was working for building Veertly at the beginning. So, but yeah, in the end, it's most if you're a founder, you all know it's intense. It's a really tough time, especially at the beginning. But it doesn't get easier if you have investors pushing on your neck. But in the end, it's also quite rewarding. And at some point, we had the revenues, and we took the decision: okay, can we afford it for Joao to really work full-time on it? And then we took the decision. But also at the same time, it's I mean, I worked for 1.5 years without any salary. Sure. Then we took the decision that we pay ourselves salary, but also for sure, I think it's currently still lower than what we earn in our corporate jobs.
So you need to expect that you're still longer time not the top paid employee in the company.
Cool. Also different motivation in mind.
There are no more questions.
One more.
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, if you begin, then you can you are the senior employees, I think, or employees in that sense, and you can teach really much. And when was the point you figured out that you need more senior people to teach the others?
You know it very early, but the question is the question is first of all, how to get them. It's very hard if you're very small. It's very hard to get them, to attract them. And then the question is indeed, I mean, we have kind of a setup, we're both from the business side. Joao was alone on the tech side. So the tech side actually we had a bit more senior, which was good. And on the business side, we could cover a bit more. But also there, I mean, our marketing knowledge is limited. It's Julian that worked in an agency, etc. I think at some point you just need input from externals. I would always highly recommend every person that worked 2+ years in a startup is always a valuable asset, because they just know how things went on, how things went in another startup. They bring, just for being there 2 years or plus, it just brings so many valuable insights that you would never get if you hire somebody from Daimler or whatever. And I would also, the interviews we had with all the corporate people or worked previously in corporates were not that successful, or we didn't feel they had this niche expertise that you need in growing a startup. So I would always highly recommend focus on people that have worked in a startup or in a high-paced environment, and at least they can work hard. Then choose one of them. Thanks, you can. Yeah, so investment banking, consulting, anything that comes where smart people are pre-selected, they work hard, they will also work hard, and where they have learned to take ownership, right? I think it's very important to understand what ownership is. In corporates, when you look, there's ownership is separated on many things.
I think we're also available at the beer, so if there are any questions.
Let's go.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Alex,